Hi everybody, welcome back. We are here for the second day of this amazing, incredible tournament. We are in Bologna, in Italy. This one is the LMS that will qualify for Lille, the final, the regional championship, and it will be Pioneer. But for today, we are going to see 6 rounds plus top 8 of modern, and we are pretty happy to tell you something funny about the One
Yeah.
Ring.
We have 409 decks day one, registering the One Ring, converting to 38 out of 61 in day two. Now, a funny statistic about this is there was actually 676 players yesterday, but we can only pull up the statistics for deck lists submitted on MTG Melee. So that is going to be a potentially even higher number because 3 deck lists on day two haven't been electronically submitted. So this could be as many as 41 decks here. Day two can play the One Ring. Do some maths. I mean, I don't think many of these decks are going to be playing less than 3. Most of them are going to be playing 4 copies. So we could have a lot of One Rings in the room yesterday, and still a lot here today. But
Yeah,
what matches are we going to be watching here down in the main feature?
we have an Amulet Titan versus Monogreen Throne in the first table. So we are going to see Riccardo Gorla against Kai Jona. And we know that from yesterday we had 3 undefeated players, but just one of them went 9-0. And we are going to see him.
Yes, we had 2 players go 8 wins and 1 draw, so they're still undefeated. But our 1-9-0 player, Amulet Titan, against Monogreen Tron here. We thought it'd be suitable to start off the second day with Table 1. So these are our 2 highest seeded players in the event right now. And how's this going to go? I would assume that it's down to who kind of gets mana faster, right? This is 2 big mana decks, one being actually utilizing their mana as a combo in Amulet Titan, and the Mono Green Tron player, we're looking to exile some lands, we're looking to disrupt the opponent. So it's definitely down to who wins this die roll here, and who's got the faster mana.
Let's see. Meanwhile, we can see there is a Giganta has a companion on one side. And it's not always something that we can see on the screen because usually it's outside the square of the screen, outside camera. So now we have a clear information. And they both mulliganed.
Yeah, and for those wondering, we're going to be trying to show as many decks as possible today, whether they are with or without the One Ring. It's inevitable you're going to see the One Ring today.
Yeah.
But these 2 decks, I can confirm, they both have copies of the One Ring. The event is still closed deck list. It is
Yeah.
only going to be open deck list in the top 8, I believe. So we're going to be releasing that information later on today. You can find it on Legacy's Twitter page when it does become public. So don't forget to go follow that, and don't forget to follow the stream as
You
we
can
mulligan down to 6.
you will find everything on MTG Melee after the ending of the tournament. But because at the top 8 deck lists are open, we can start to talk about it. So we will have some more information to give you about that.
Yeah. For those asking about the rounds today, it's 6 rounds more of Swiss, and that will cut to top 8.
Exactly. We have 64 players today. Only 62 players went 7-2 or better yesterday. Another mulligan.
Both players.
Down to 5.
Both players having a rough morning today, both down to 5. I think that here, I would assume Tron is leaning more slightly favored when you mulligan to 5, because Tron only cares about having the 3 lands, whereas Amulet Titan has to assemble both good mana, the amulets, and getting the Titan into play.
Wow.
Anything can happen on a mulligan to 5, though.
They are both mulligan to 5. That is why I don't know. I just want to see this game because it's strange. Titan player went 9-0 yesterday, so I think clearly he knows really well what he's doing. So that's why I'm wondering what are he is trying to find. What he's trying to find.
Well, when you're an undefeated player and you're also playing someone who's an undefeated player, your these players most definitely know what the other player is playing.
Yeah.
So, because you're going to be sitting next to them all of yesterday.
Move to 4.
So this is going to be a multi. But again, with the London Mulligan getting 7 fresh cards as a Tron player, there's only 3 cards you need to be able to win the game. You just need the power plant, mine, and tower. So he could mulligan down to 4, down to 3, and still be able to win because as long as you have those 3 lands in your opening hand, the top of your deck can still bail you out.
And Ricardo is thinking about keeping at 5 or mulligan, but it seems like he's just choosing the 2 cards that has to be put on the bottom of the deck. Yeah. And let's see if Jonah will keep at 4. Yep, it seems like.
I don't see any Tron lands. Oh, I think this is a
Oh,
mulligan.
no.
This is a mulligan, I think. There's only 1 Tron land, and there's no way to find a Tron land. You don't even have a map. I think he has to go to 3. Look, he has no map. He has no way to even use this star as good green mana. Yeah, you
he's
gotta go
going down
3.
to 3.
That is a mulligan to 3 here. Day 1.
Not a
Sorry,
good way
day
to
2,
start the
match
day.
1, yeah, of the day. Wow. Mulligan to 3.
Gosh.
What a morning.
One of the important aspects of this kind of event is that when you start the day 2 and you have something like that happens, you need to be very focused and very strong because it's so easy then to go in a bad mood and start to think, oh, now I am unlucky, my tournament will go in a bad way. But you need to keep up, and it's not so easy.
For those wondering about the backup feature, we have the backup feature paused as we want to line up matches so that... that I think that's Tron. I think this is Tron. I think I see Tower Mine Power Plant. Is this Tron? Potentially.
Yeah, he's keeping.
No, it's not. I think they're duplicate because he's keeping a thing in hand. That sucks. He must have alternate art, like not all the same arts of Tron lands. But that is hilarious.
Is this game 1? Yes. Yeah. Keep to
So
4.
close, but so far.
Keep to 3.
Okay, I mean,
Wow.
if we have a Sylvan Scrying off the top, if we have an Expedition map off the top, so many things off the top here can be a game changer. What was that? Well, that's a 1 ring.
Second land.
Now, do you sack this Chromatic Sphere? I agree. I don't think you sacrifice this because if you draw anything like Ancient Stirrings, Sylvan Scrying, and that's a pass back from
Ooh,
Amulet Titan.
No land.
There are lands, but they are bounce lands, and they
Yeah.
have no use with no amulet in play. So we have to have some patience here
Chromatic
before we
Star.
can play that. Because now Urza Saga is going to tick up to 3. This is going to be able to float a mana, get an Amulet of Vigor out of the deck, and then we can start doing things with the floated mana from Urza Saga and the bounce lands in hand. So if you have something like Dryad of Elysian Grove, we could potentially do something, or even an Azusa. This game could quickly turn around here. Yes, there's another amulet in hand. Could this just be a kill? There's an amulet, a grazer, and a bounce land. And there's a Titan. This is. I think this is just lethal. I think this is just.
Let's see.
Turn 3 kill. Because you're going to make 4 mana with this land. You're going to pay 1 to play grazer. That makes 4 more mana. So then you're going to have 7 mana floating with Titan in hand. You can play Titan. You have 1 white mana left. And then you can give the Titan haste and give the Titan double strike.
Wow.
That's going to be...
At turn 2.
Yeah, you can pump... I think you can pump twice, give haste, and give double strike. I think this is just lethal. Oh, yeah, Azusa makes this mega lethal, actually. Having Azusa and Titan here is even more insane than just using Grazer.
Azusa, the second bounce land. And we can keep counting of the mana Thanks also for them to make this very clear for us.
So every land here makes 4 mana because of the 2 Amulet of Vigors in play. When these bounce lands enter the battlefield tapped, they get untapped twice because of each individual amulet trigger. So we're floating mana in response to each trigger to untap it. That's gaining us a load of mana. Primeval Titan's coming into play here to search 2 lands from our library to the battlefield, but they come into play tapped. But that's good with Amulet of Vigor, because these 2 lands coming into play tapped are going to be untapped twice. So now we can utilize Slayer's Stronghold to be able to... Oh, we're going to go for Double Titan. So this is very good play. We're going to be getting Simic Growth Chamber and Teleria West. Teleria West can be transmuted for 2 blue and 1 to search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost. So that's going to go get Summoner's Pact. We're going to Summoner's Pact for another Primeval Titan. That Titan can be cast. We can give both of those Titans haste, and then give one of them double strike as well. This is guaranteed kill.
Wow.
Yeah, that bounce line's going to make 4 more mana.
He's doing so much things in just one turn.
Yes.
At round and third turn. This is incredible. Really incredible. Such a deck.
Yeah, a turn 3 kill here. Don't forget, both players mulliganed very low, so it may seem like this happened way faster, but we just had a turn 1 Urza Saga from Amulet Titan on the draw, and on turn 3, that Amulet of Vigor coming from the Saga with bounce lines in hand with the Azusa definitely made this a nice turn 3, especially on a mulligan to 5. Now it's your choice of either pumping the Titans or giving them double strike, or... What? Is that a Valakut?
Then again, let's start up with a lot of mana floating.
Huh. So now we're going to get our double strike land.
Yep.
It's going to untap twice. We're just going to get a way to make more mana. Then we can activate it twice. Both Titans get double strike, and that will be game over. Very nicely played here by our Amulet Titan player.
And yep. This is a good choice to go straight to game 2. So you don't lose time. You still have 38 minutes on the clock. And we already saw that this could end very fast. So first game of the match was won by Riccardo. And let's see. What do you think about this matchup after the sideboarding?
I think that both of these decks will have very little preparation for each other because there are, bigger decks that you have to be targeting right now. But what's nice out of Tron is we have many ways to hate against artifacts and enchantments because of how many One Rings were expected today. So we're going to see things out of Tron like Haywire Might. But as a lot of cards here in the board are dedicated for Karn the Great Creator, we don't really have much flexibility. Out of Amulet Titan, we have Besages to be able to destroy Tron lands. We have Haywire Might from the Titan player themselves, because you are going to expect some copies of the One Ring if you want to hedge against that. An interesting one, though, from Amulet Titan, they have Phyrexian Metamorph in the board. Many different options you could go with. I would assume you want to keep yourself as linear as possible with as Amulet Titan. You want to make sure you're comboing fast, and you don't need to disrupt them too much, especially because Tron is a lot slower than you. So I would just expect the Besages to come in. Potentially some artifact destruction as well. Monogreen Tron. Too much sideboard slots are dedicated for Karn the Great Creator. I would be surprised if more than just Haywire Might was brought in.
Meanwhile, Jonah is still deciding what he's want to take in and to take out. And we have 64 players today. It will be 6 rounds plus top 8. We will cover the entire event. And today they will qualify for Lille, that is the regional championship here in Europe, and it will be Pioneer, the last event of this season.
Okay, so we're boarding out 3 cards, so more than just Haywire Might is coming in. Maybe they're gonna board in their copy of the One Ring from the sideboard. I couldn't quite see there. That would make sense though, because it's very unlikely that you'd play Karn the Great Creator minus for ring and have the time to play ring. You probably just want 4 rings in the deck, so that you can play that for the protection, so they can't combo you.
So till 15 plus top 8, exactly. This is a closed decklist tournament, and they will be available for you and on MTG Melee at the end of this event, so this evening. But we can show you something during the top 8.
Yeah. And hopefully we can actually see a game here, because our Tron player had to mulligan to 3 last game, just all opening hands not helping them. But honestly, it was well identified that they had to go to 3, because all of their opening hands were 1 Tron land, no good ways to find another Tron land, like just 1 star we saw for the mulligan to 4, then the mulligan to 3 had 2 Tron lands and a star, so you actually had some sort of a chance, but definitely a rough start.
Let's see. Meanwhile, for who was asking about the next Grand Open qualifier, they will be announced, I think, in few weeks. And let's see if they decide to keep our mole.
I see an Arboreal Grazer and an Amulet
And
for
I
our
think
Titan player.
Also has 1 ring.
I don't... With a Teleria West, but no good way to produce blue mana, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you want as a Titan player, especially against Tron. I can see both reasons to keep and mulligan this hand, because the One Ring is very powerful, but I think if you're playing turn 3, turn 4 One Ring against Tron, I don't know if that's what you want to do when Tron is looking to slam big bombs on turn 3 and 4. Let's see.
Starting to counting up. And first mulligan for Monogreen Throne.
Uh-oh.
Not a good start of the day for him. But mulligan to 6, as you say before, shouldn't be a big problem for Monogreen Throne.
I think Tron comfortably mulligans down to 4. Because all you need are 3 specific cards plus payoff. And that's quite easy to find when you're looking at a fresh 7 every mulligan, and you just bottom the cards that you don't need. So, I think if you're this Tron player, not concerned at all about all these mulligans. It's literally a part of the deck. Like, I would say a lot of the skill in Tron is working out what to keep and what's a mulligan. It's a big part of the deck.
Have Ricardo keep at 7.
Sylvan Scrying, I see a Tron land. Is it only 1 Tron land? Yeah, I think you got a mulligan that. Yeah.
This could be very difficult on a psychological aspect of the day for him.
I think not. I think the reason why he is 8 wins and 1 draw is because he does this.
Yeah. Okay.
How many people keep that hand because they're like, oh, I have a star and a scrying. If I top deck a land, I can cast my scrying. It's actually
Yeah.
very good discipline. Because
Yeah.
I would think a bad mentality is, oh, I'll just keep this. Screw it, I can get lucky. But being disciplined, mulliganing, making sure you have a consistent hand that on average can win against Amulet Titan, very well played.
Yeah, also yesterday he was undefeated, so I think you're right.
Again, no Tron lands. I mean,
Oh
where are the
gosh.
lands in his deck? Where are the lands? I think. Okay, I can't quite see every card, but with a Stirrings, I think you can keep this because you have a star and a Stirrings and a map. So if you can find one more Tron land, you can assemble Tron turn 4. You have a card in the Great Creator. I think this is a keep, but obviously you're not too happy about this one. This one is a borderline keep, but because you have the Stirrings, which is essentially a land, and you get another draw with the star, I don't hate it.
So who was asking the highest deck without rings is in table 3. And we see a keep.
Okay,
Land and star. And land and amulet. Sacking the star, drawing one card.
that's a Haywire Might. Not terrible, but we need to find a Tron land. Desperately need a Tron land in the top 5. No way.
And
There's no Tron land in the top 5. This is very unfortunate. In 2 games, we just can't find Tron lands in opening hands or in the top of the deck. Where did they go? I think you have to play this Beseiju because you do have both Haywire
yeah,
Might in hand and the Expedition map.
and it's coming down on the board. Another Dryad.
So Dryad of the Elysian Grove is somewhat nice because it fixes your mana, but we don't have a bounce land available to us, I believe. We do have Valakut, which is nice, but we need more than what the Titan player has in hand. I think this game is going to be closer than it looks because the Titan player has access to little amount of pressure. So if there isn't a Titan coming down on the Titan player's 5th turn, the Tron player has a good chance, like here.
There's another map.
And what's nice here is I would assume that the ring is just going to be played here. You could play the Dryad, but then you get little value. Oh, but we can Haywire Might the Expedition map from off the top. Prevent them from getting their 3rd Tron land, of course. And that Cavern of Souls is going to come down. But now, the Amulet Titan player is left with very little amount of value. We've got a 1 ring in hand, but we know about the Karn the Great Creator on the other side of the board. And we've also got some Dryads with a Valakut. So I guess lands off the top are also just good here.
What is... Okay. So now we have also another clear information.
Oh, Tron off the top. Tower. Ripped off the top.
Okay.
So now we have... It depends how we've sideboarded. Because the clicking of the fingers, it's about to begin. It's about to begin. Because we did bring in some Karn sideboard cards. So, for example, you might not be able to Karn Ring here, depending on what you have access to.
3 cards on hand for both players. And first of all, card.
Okay, what should Tron have access to? If I was here, I would probably get the One Ring, because you need to draw cards, and you can't really destroy anything. You could also get the Stone Brain, depending if you have that or not. Liquid Metal Coating is also a good choice here that we have at the front of the hand. What are we going to go for? Okay, that is a Liquid Metal Coating looking to shut off mana. And that's because there is only one green on the other side of the board. That Cavern of Souls is naming Giant.
Haywire Might.
And a
Right.
very tight play here, using all 4 mana to both Liquid Metal Coating and Haywire Might, the Amulet of Vigor. And now we can turn off the Forest on the upkeep, so we only have access to green mana for Giants, which just isn't going to work. And that turns off all the Dryads in hand. Unless we find a green off the top. No, that's a Mycos in the Gardens.
It's always good to check the correct text of a card, even in big tournaments.
So that Mycos in the Gardens does allow you to pay 1 mana to get a mana of any color, so that Dryad is going to be able to come down. But now, we can get Sundering Titan, because Dryad of the Elysian Grove gives all your lands every basic land type, so Sundering Titan destroys every land on the other side of the board for the Amulet player. So that is going to be a victory here. Game 2 for Tron. That tower was an insane top deck to both get Liquid Metal Coating and that Sundering Titan to blow up the board.
And now we have 24 minutes for game 3.
The Titan player did in fact just get Titaned.
That's right. John is thinking about something, maybe from the sideboard, but deciding to keep his deck as straight as he have. Also, Ricardo didn't make any change right now, so they are just, again, going strong for their plan.
Yep. And that was the risk. We were discussing that. That hand did have Teleria West to go find a Titan. It or a Summoner's Pact to find a Titan. It did have an Amulet. It did have a One Ring. While that game plan would be okay against some decks in Modern, I think against Tron you just can't let them have so much time. Game 1, what did Amulet Titan do? Well, they just killed them turn 3 and didn't let them assemble Tron. Here, I think giving Tron the time, giving them a turn 4, giving them a turn 5 is very rough as Amulet Titan, and we need to be more aggressively mulliganing, like Mono Green Tron is, to make sure we're at least putting some sort of pressure on the board to make their life a bit awkward.
Let's see if we are going to see another multi 4 or...
Yeah. What a nice top deck, though. Very nice tower off the top. That is why we play Magic the Gathering. While it can happen to you, you could also have amazing spots like that where you rip the perfects.
And chat, let us know, who are you rooting for in this situation?
We Tron supporters or we Titan supporters today, chat? Who we rooting for? They both play the One Ring, so you can't hate on them for that. This is a rough hand for Tron, especially on the draw. You could keep, but it is risky.
On the other side, we saw an Amulet, Boseju, double copy of Dryad.
What I find funny is people think Tron is the unfair deck. I think Tron is somewhat fair in Modern now compared to what people are doing. Like, I would rather my opponent try to play 3 lands that with different names than maybe evoke a Grief turn 1 and scam it into play. Like, I would much rather play against Tron all day than Rakdos scam. I don't know about you guys.
It seems like Ricardo decided to keep 7 cards. John is trying to understand his plan, make his counts, and yep, they both keep at 7. Poseidon as a land and amulet.
And we did keep this. This is a 1 Tron land hand. Now, if we can find a Tron land off the top, it's insane because we have the scrying. So this is the risk that you take as the Tron player with this Dryad of the Elysian Grove coming down. And it is awkward because we know about Beseiju on the other side of the board. Okay, Beseiju is in play for the Titan player, but what's important is we can bounce that Beseiju to the hand with one of the bounce lands. That's a Haywire Might, though. That can either exile the Dryad or exile the Amulet. But again, you have the same... Oh, we do have a second Tron land in hand, but I think that's another mine. I can't quite see. But that Haywire Might can help fight against the Titan player going quickly, especially with the Dryad giving 2 land drops next turn. We know about the bounce land in hand. And if there's a Titan, that is 6 mana. We could just have a kill next turn from the Titan player.
Yeah, you can target the amulet with the might.
Yep. Did I say Might can exile Dryad? Sorry, I meant to say... I thought I said the Might can exile the Amulet. The, either way,
Okay.
still the Dryad is going to be providing a lot of value here
Mm-hmm.
for the Amulet player. Oh, and another Amulet off the top. That's just kill. It's game over, right? Because we're going to play our land twice. We're going to make 8 mana. We have access to 9 mana here with a Summoner's Pact. We're going to get 2 Titans in play because of Teleria West. We're going to give both of them haste, both of them double strike. We're going to attack.
Let's see. And now we are again up to counting everything and a lot of mana floating. 20 minutes still on the clock, plus the extra time that they will have just for setting up everything. Second Dryad.
That Dryad is ramp. 3 mana. That makes 4. That's going to be a kill because the Teleria West in play. You just get Titan, cast Titan, get your choice of 2 lands. They don't even have to make blue mana because Dryads make blue mana anyways.
It's going to end like the first game of this match, it seems like.
I think we're just communicating what is going to be done to shortcut it. I think Tron's just like, just kill me, brother. You gotta go through the motions.
They still have 20 minutes, kind of, something near to 20 minutes, so I don't think it will be an issue even if he has to show the entire process of the thing.
So Crumbling Vestige here is a nice card because while it's a colorless land that makes a mana, Dryad now makes it tap for any color of mana. Is there anything here that we could have like a Force of Vigor to steal the game? I don't think so. Because I feel like these amulets would have been gone by now. For those wondering about top 8 breakers, we need to see standings first, but typically at this size of event, you're looking at 3 losses or 2 losses and a draw. But that's going to be an extension of a hand for the Mono Green Tron player. Unfortunate mulligans, but our Amulet Titan player is going to be getting the win here and advancing to 10-0, putting themselves in a great position to make that top 8 spot if they can win a few more matches.
Still undefeated. This is unbelievable.
We're going to check in on our table 2.
Yep.
That's going to be Mono Black Control versus 5-color Creativity. We apologize if there's any camera issues. We've just set up the stream, so we're going to be working on that to get that fixed.
Yeah, they will fix it pretty fast. And meanwhile, they're updating our score, so we can see right now that we are on game 2. It seems like it's game 2, and we have the first win. The first game was won by mono black control player.
Yeah, and that's because this mono black control deck has so many ways to both remove 1/1 creatures on the board with loads of Fatal Push, Blood Chief's Thirst, as well as Karn the Great Creator being such a powerful card with giving you easy access to the One Ring, so many ways to disrupt the opponent's mana, Sundering Titan being a big deal. So I think we're going to see a creativity here. I would hope. Ooh. But that's going to be an untapped Steam Vents with 2 Dwarf tokens on the battlefield. Oh, that's going to be creativity.
Yep.
X's 2, targeting both of those dwarfs, trying to make Archon of Cruelty. That is a march to deal 1 damage to one of the dwarfs and to gain 1 life. And now we're going to get 1 Archon out of the deck.
Let's try to find.
There's the Archon.
Okay. What do you think about this matchup? Do you think that mono black control is in a better spot against 5-color creativity, or the opposite, or are they balanced?
I think the One Ring can be a problem for creativity, especially against a deck with a lot of removal.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume mono black control is slightly favored with how much mana it can produce, how easily it can kill an Archon. And you have also so much just mana disruption, whether it's Liquid Metal Coating, Field of Runes, Demolition Field as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this makes... Oh, that's a Damnation.
Nice.
That also makes 2... I think it makes 6 mana, but obviously only 1 card in hand, probably can't do anything with it.
And 3 mana.
That's a ring.
Oh, yeah.
There's no counterspell here. This can run away with the game. There's a Leyline Binding. Gets rid of the ring.
Third one.
Now, because the ring was exiled in response to the activation, we actually don't get to draw a card there, but that is a Karn the Great Creator.
The last card of his hand.
And we're going to have a lot of mana floating. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 swamps. So we have 3 mana floating. So we could see a Sundering Titan here, right? There's 3 floating and 5 on the board. Oh, there's 4 floating.
4 floating.
Oh, there might be an Urborg in play, counting the Cabal Coffers. But that's a Cityscape Leveler. Oh, yes. Okay, there is 3 floating. Okay.
That's correct.
Gonna cast that. We're gonna get a cast trigger to destroy the Leyline Binding. Now, something interesting is the One Ring says if it is cast, you get protection from everything.
Exactly.
So because it hasn't been cast, we actually do not get protection from everything here. So an Archon of Cruelty would make our Coffers player sacrifice, discard, and lose some life. It's actually something that a lot of people missed day 1. So many people. There were a lot of judge calls regarding the fact that One Ring was put into play, but it wasn't cast because of Leyline Binding. Big facts.
Yep. Meanwhile, 14 life points for René and 12 for Alessandro. Deciding which land he wants to use for everything. 12 minutes left on the clock, plus the extra time. We also need to say a big thanks to the judges that we have in this event, and we have 2 judges dedicated for the tables that are watching the entire game. So in every moment they are there for make everything right. And they are doing an amazing job. There is a lot of thinking from Alessandro, trying to decide which move is the best one against René. You still have 6 mana plus a treasure. And let's remember that this one is the first round of today. We will have 6 rounds, so we are going straight to 15 rounds total plus the top 8. Okay, so it's deciding to use 4 mana and another creativity.
Okay.
And we have, let's see what is the side to targeting.
So it's now Mono Black's decision, but because Cityscape Leveler has Unearth, I'd be very surprised. But I guess you could be worried about Lightning Bolt on the Karn, so I also don't hate discarding the Karn there, especially since you're going to be drawing a ton of cards with the ring. And then you don't have to worry about the Archon because you can just attack with the Cityscape Leveler.
One draw, taking 1 damage from the ring. Draw a second, so 2 cards now. And right now we have like 9 lands in play for
I
René.
think it's 10 because Urborg is now playing.
Oh, yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, no, you're right. It's 9 lands in play, but Cabal Coffers is now counted as the 9th swamp.
In March.
Okay, that's going to be dealing 6 damage. Gaining 6 life. That's going to be his... Is that a Spell Pierce?
Yeah, he plays some in main board, so seems like it.
Now we can get our Shieldred back or our Orcish Bowmaster. Gonna go for the Bowmaster, giving our opponent a Power Stone, but I'm sure we don't mind about doing that. Gonna be making that Orc army. Fun fact, this Orc army token was actually drawn by one of our judges.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from the main stage. But that's gonna be an extension from the hand. Mono Black Control winning 2-0 against 5-color Creativity. A very favored match, clearly, for the Mono Black Control deck, advancing to 8-1-1 here at the start of day 2. It's a very great start, looking to do very well if we can keep winning for that top 8.
We have a backup match, and we are going to see Creativity against Yagmoth Golgari.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for the Creativity player here. Nothing on the board. If we can have something like a Prismari command, potentially, we could be doing something here. We need to get tokens into play. With the Yawgmoth coming down, 2 Orcish Bowmasters. Yeah, we can Binding the Yawgmoth. Or at least attempt to.
First leyline and...
So, if we have a Chord of Calling, can we do anything creative here? For example, you could untap the Young Wolf by killing it. And then that would give you 1, 2, 3, 4 untapped creatures. And then you get 1 mana from the Wall of Roots. So you could Court of Calling for X's too. If you haven't used the Wall of Roots this turn yet. I'm not sure. But that's going to be the Young Wolf being sacrificed to the Yawgmoth, I assume with no targets. You don't have to put a counter on something. Going to be drawing a card, getting that Young Wolf back from Undying. Now let's see if we have a Court of Calling. No. We're going to be sacrificing the Dryad Arbor to put a counter. So this is a little nice loop that Yawgmoth can assemble. So Undying is an effect that says if this creature would die and it doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it, return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Now, normally that's somewhat fair, but when you can put -1/-1 counters on something with Yawgmoth, you can essentially sacrifice the creature over and over again because you can use other creatures to put -1/-1 counters on your already Undying creature. But with the creativity player passing back to Yawgmoth, it is looking to be an almost free win just by attacking.
Counting up everything for the attack. Let's see what creativity's player decide to do. And he decided to take everything. There are still 5 minutes on the clock. 1 game for each players. So we are in game 3.
Okay. This is going to be Grist the Hunger Tide, maybe? 3 mana. Oh, it's going to be an Eldritch Evolution to sacrifice Wall of Roots. But that's going to get Spell Pierced. That was going to be a Yawgmoth, but that Spell Pierce is coming in clutch. We need a fetch land off the top here for our creativity player. We need to put an Archon on the board, and we need to start getting some value. Dwarven Mine or fetch land off the top is needed. Not much else can be drawn. Unless you have something like a sweeper. More removal spells would be nice.
A ley line of binding going on the orc army.
Huge draw. That is a fetch land. That is going to be going to get a Dwarven Mine to make a 1/1 dwarf token. And we know about the 2 Indomitable Creativities in hand. So now we can attempt to put an Archon into play. There is a Verdant Catacombs on the other side of the board. It could potentially be some sort of interactive spell. That's going to be a Force of Vigor.
Oh, nice.
To get back the Yawgmoth. So now we can sacrifice one of our creatures to be able to kill that dwarf before Indomitable Creativity resolves, making it fail to resolve.
Yep. I think now it's very difficult. What can creativity's player do in this situation? With no mana left,
Concede.
there is
Right.
no way for him.
There's just 6 power on the
Yep.
board. Go to combat.
Counting up, yeah, exactly. That was such a great way to deal against the creativity.
Yes, that is going to be it here for round 1 for these 2 players. Again, one advancing to 8 wins. A very great start for day 2, and that's going to be it here for round 1 of day 2. Actually, round 10. And we're going to be back shortly with Philip and Piotr to get you some more modern action soon.
See you soon.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of LMS Bologna. We're playing modern, we're playing for big prizes, and we've got just a handful of players left.
Only 64 players qualified for day 2.
Yes, and the cutoff was 7-2, but also some people at 6-2 and 1 made it in.
Yeah, the rule is that either it's 7-2 or top 64, whichever is greater. In the case of this tournament, 64 was greater, so there have been some people with 6-1 records getting into day 2.
Yes, I think just a handful of them missed. Like 3 of them missed on that cut. And so we're back. We're back, and we've got the meta game for today, actually.
Yeah, let's take a look.
And so this is the meta game, and the deck at the very top. You wouldn't believe me if I told you that, I don't know, probably 2 weeks ago, mono green Tron. Can you please elaborate why that could possibly have happened?
Well, it's kind of crazy, right? It's also a little bit surprising to me, but it is probably because of the One Rings presence. Tron, the most popular deck in day 2 of this tournament, 8 out of 64, so like 1/8 of the field, 12% Tron players. That's, you know, not a humongous amount, but it's pretty large by modern standards, and it's pretty significantly bigger than it used to be in the past. And well, the One Ring is just the reason why Tron got so much better. It is a card that helps you play games where you fail to assemble Tron. It helps you survive till you assemble Tron, and it helps you bridge towards later in the game. And it's also just a good threat to cast when you have all of your mana available, and you're gonna draw more action, and you're gonna use your Karn, the Great Creators, to great effect after you draw so many cards.
Yep, and then below we've got creativity, a usual suspect. I think that's something that was on everybody's radar, one of the top decks recently. And then we got 4 color control, which seems to have, you know, unearthed, right? Because it was really playable with Yorion, then it stopped being playable, and now it has come back. And again, the reason is basically the One Ring, right?
Yes.
You play Omnath, play Fetchland, add mana, play the One Ring, and you also get the life gain of Omnath to offset the life loss of the One Ring.
And then you draw cards.
And then you draw a bunch of cards which you can then unload with all the pitch elementals, right? So, but then Mono Green Tron preys on exactly that. Now we're into the game and we're watching Rag the Scam versus Jeskai Combo Breach. So a deck that you and I have been playing quite a bit.
Yes. Not an impressive start by Marcel, and Przybylski is leading with like the greatest possible start out of the red-black deck, presuming that there is also an Undying Malice effect hiding in his hand. Let's take a look.
Yeah, so we've got Grief, Take Iteration, Undying Malice. So can you explain to us what actually happens here?
Yeah, Undying Malice or Feign Death, those are basically functionally the same card. 1 mana instants that grant your creature an ability that says that when they die this turn, they come back from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped with a +1/+1 counter on them. So it's a combo with the Evoke Elemental cycle from Modern Horizons 2. Fury and Grief are present in this Rakdos deck. If you evoke a Grief, you mostly do it to get like the spell-like effect, the immediate impact of the discard spell, but it is still a creature. Like, it is still a 3/2 creature that just like dies right after it comes into play. So you can take advantage of that with the Undying Malice effects.
Yeah, and now we see a Lightning Bolt, beautiful 4th edition Japanese, taking care of the threat, which actually is pretty good because card-wise, it was close-ish, but now there is no pressure. Ragavan coming in, dashed.
Yeah, the Lightning Bolt is a great top deck because certainly this is what the Grief Undying Malice does. It just takes away all of your cards. It stripped Marshall of Iteration and Emery, leaving him with no spells in hand.
Ooh.
But now with the Bolt top deck, there is no pressure besides the Dragavan, which is going to be annoying. Maybe it's going to cast something from Marshall's deck at some point, but it's not a particularly fast clock.
Yeah, and to
for
make
now.
sure the deck on the left is a combo breach deck with Grinding Station, as we see now. We'll be changing the name. Yes, as you can see on the screen, it is your usual Jeskai Breach combo. Now, Kanister, great streamer, content creator, tell us, why would you keep dashing Ragavan instead of just playing it and then attacking without having to pay 2 mana every turn?
Well, if you don't have alternative ways to spend your mana in your hand, you might as well just keep dashing and keep dealing damage. So yeah, as you see, Przybylski just wanted to dash. Maybe you can hit, you know, an Expressive Iteration, an Emery, like something else that you can cast from your opponent's deck.
Okay, so now we see Doughty Voidwalker on the battlefield, which is very tricky for the Breach deck to beat, because it turns off basically the combo, right?
Yeah, it does turn off the combo. You can no longer use Grinding Station, Underworld Breach to mill your deck, so Doughty Voidwalker needs to be removed before the combination begins.
What's also particularly annoying is that the opponent can steal your Urza Saga, Emry, Expressive Iteration, and you've got a lot of good cards to be stolen. No, Underworld Breach. So now we see Ragavan stolen off of Ragavan, return, pass. And now Przybylski is just kind of playing a tempo game, right? Just attack you, attack you, attack you. And the early disruption might just be enough.
Yeah, the addition of the Voidwalker is both like is great both as a hate piece and a clock. Suddenly it's not 2 damage every turn, it's just 5 damage every turn, and that's a clock that just doesn't take that many turns to
finish the game off.
to finish the game.
We saw some builds, I think, like let's say a month-ish ago with Blood Tithe Harvester. So why do you think this player brought Voidwalker and not Harvester?
Well, Voidwalker is like kind of a better card overall than Blood Tithe Harvester. For all the praise you can give to Blood Tithe Harvester for its presence in Standard and Pioneer and how like crucial it is to those formats and how powerful of a bread and butter 2-drop it is in those formats. Its main advantage in Modern is that it's a red card that you can pitch to Fury 2.
And now we see a very, very powerful play. Ragavan stealing Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah, that's painful.
Teferi Time Raveler now granting Przybylski all the possible priorities when it comes to timing. He also bounced Grinding Station, so I assume it's like a preventative measure for when Marshall could, let's say, end-step bolt Voidwalker and try to go off, right?
Yeah,
Now,
certainly. Just you don't want to die to the combo. Marshall's at 4 life already, so that's like most of your focus not to die to the combo in some way. So bouncing here makes sense. Marshall could sacrifice the station to itself to prevent
the draw,
the
yeah.
draw from the ferry, but
But then
you know, then Marshall also loses the station, so Przybylski was absolutely fine with that.
Now, I also have seen a lot of Fair Breach decks. So what's the appeal of bringing one or the other? Fair Breach versus Station Breach.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen many of them in this tournament, but
Okay, actually, I think a very cool thing is happening. So Marshall is dying, but before he concedes, he mills the opponent just to see 3 more cards of the library.
nice.
Which is, you know, I can respect that.
Those tiny edges, you get to work for them, and it's just like so rewarding when you get to, you know, imagine you get to see a Blood Moon, and then you know your opponent is on Blood Moon, right?
Yeah.
One could argue you could guess that already, right? There's high likelihood that they're playing a Blood Moon in their main deck, but you know, it just all adds up. So a very heads-up play by Marshall.
I saw some cards pulled to the front by Marshall, and that was Teferi Time Raveler, Tormod's Crypt, and there was also, I think, Spell Pierce. So, and Surge of Salvation. So, in general, as the Breach deck, what do you want to side in? What kind of approach do you want to take? Do you want to be fast combo? Do you want to be more creature-focused, saga-focused? Which avenue, preferably, would you take?
I have not enjoyed the combo aspect of the Breach deck against Scam specifically. They have so much discard that they can oftentimes poke holes in your combo, so it's kind of hard to assemble it. And then it causes you to top deck very, very often, and you end up top decking those grinding stations. It's really not that great when you cannot assemble them into a combo. And on top of that, Duffy Voidwalker making it so that oftentimes you like, that's not even an option on the table, just means that I prefer to look to play a grindier game if possible and win with my alternate threats. Now that most of my experience here was before the One Ring was introduced, and probably Marcel has that card in his deck, and it's a great tool against red black. So
Before the
it
one
might change the dynamic.
before the One Ring, I remember when I played this matchup quite a bit. So sometimes I even got as far as just cutting the whole combo.
Mhm.
Like I kept, let's say, 3 breaches as a value card, or 2 breaches, cut the stations, cut the Oracle, let's say 2 Ambers, or even all of them, and just literally play like a Jeskai control deck with Urza's Saga sometimes.
Yeah, trying to have good top decks so that you don't just roll over when you get Thoughtseize and then you draw a grinding station. It all makes sense
Yeah,
to me.
Urza's Saga is also like the best card because it creates so many threats and cannot be griefed away, although its vulnerability is Blood Moon.
Yeah,
So that's
Blood Moon blanking multiples can certainly be a large issue, so that is something that is not trivial to tackle. This matchup in general is not trivial to tackle. Like Ragdoll Scam is like a well-rounded deck that attacks from many angles. It has answers to many cards.
But in that particular game, if Marcel didn't have Station and Amber and had, let's say, Bolt Heat,
Yes.
just smooth sailing.
Yeah, certainly he was missing like some real cards instead of the Uno cards that you could call the combo pieces that he drew.
Yep. Because then if you actually overload, let's say, on those spell pierces and removal post board, you could just try to play until you achieve the One Ring at some point, and then go from there, right?
Yes.
And you will outgrind the opponent with those Ragavans, with those replayed Sagas, and then Ring itself. So if you stay alive, you should be fine. And I've heard this sentiment shared a lot. You just play as a control deck. Because then, the more you're trying to assemble the combo, the easier it is to poke holes in that, right? Because then the Przybylski can just take your breach, you're left with Station Amber, and nothing can be done with that. So we can see a mulligan down to 6. I saw a land, I saw an iteration. Iteration great at recouping lost card advantage due to the mulligan. And we see a keep. So Mox Amber, land, Ragavan hold up and Holy Heat. That could be good.
Yeah, in a way. You know, playing the Mox Ambers is, you know, you're already mulligan to 6, so then like Mox Amber can sometimes feel like a mulligan to 5.
Yeah.
But certainly if you lead on a Ragavan and it survives, it can be a very functional mana source. So
Yeah, so it could be the exact opposite.
yes, we'll
Then you
see.
feel actually ahead.
You feel like you mulligan to, well, 6 again, but one of your lands.
Yeah.
Cost 0 mana.
But then again, if Ragavan survives, that's good enough already. Then
Yeah.
and now, kind of awkward position. Actually, very awkward position indeed. Missing the second land drop.
Marcho was relying on this Ragavan to connect, make it treasure, enable the Mox Amber to have some more mana to be able to cast some more stuff. Now, unfortunately, misses, and Przybylski has like all the time in the world, I guess, to...
And let's see what that keep was indeed. Iteration, Breach, Bolt, and I think one more card of camera. Actually, if that Ragavan had survived and Przybylski had a blocker, you could just play Iteration off of land Amber and try to dig for a land and then bolt the blocker. So I think
just try to find a land versus with the iteration. That would be the goal. But there's no iteration anymore. And taking the lightning bolt signals that there's not gonna be the Undying Malice effect, probably.
there is the One Ring in hand, so Marcel just wants to play for the long game, but it might just not be possible. Fetching a swamp, maybe indicating a Blood Moon potentially coming down.
Most likely.
Thankfully, the One Ring is colorless.
Yeah, it's also 4 mana, so...
Ooh, okay, even deploying a threat here. Trigger. So how good is Orcish Bowmaster against Breach?
It's good against exact card the One Ring, so... Certainly... It has its value. There is also like the issue with the Bowmasters where if your opponent doesn't actually draw cards, it's kind of like 2 power for 2 mana, so like sometimes not much happens after you play your Orcish Bowmasters, but you're happy to put any amount of pressure on the battlefield as Przybylski. And you see that Marshall spent a lightning bolt on the
Bowmasters, yeah.
Bowmaster, so to make
Oof.
so that's pretty. Shibitsky has to be pretty happy with that because now he gets to develop Ragavan and Duffy Voidwalker, and they're presumably gonna survive. And
Yes, this is going to be super hard to come back from. Attack for 6, so it's basically a turn 3 clock right now. So even if Marcel draws running lands, it might still be difficult.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's gonna be difficult. Yeah.
Oof, and then license hers to cut off some other avenue. Empty-handed, and Przybylski says, that's all I've got. You may go.
Yeah.
Also, Orcish Bowmaster could be good when you try to go like, breach, triple or quadruple bobble. That could be another thing, but
Mishra's bubble is a start, but it's probably a start that doesn't lead anywhere. As we see, there's 2 Underworld Breaches in hand, which are absolutely useless right now for Marcel. There was a Teferi and one ring, so there probably isn't a sequence of draws that is actually relevant because you have 9 life points and you have to avoid all of this damage. Unlicensed Hairs also can turn into a lethal attacker at some point, so it's gonna be tough.
there's a question, why no concession? Well, why, if you're in that position...
When you play in a tournament, like, of course you want to play your games to their conclusion, so like there's nothing weird.
I think Marcel actually
it.
missed the bubble draw. Okay, and they're saying, okay, you can draw anyways. I mean, Przybylski feels okay the opponent drawing one more card because, well, that shouldn't matter that much, should it?
Yeah, also like, you have to just communicate the...
And that may have been actually the draw of the bubble.
Most likely it was.
Yeah, I think chat would like a concession for content, so they can see other matches, but I don't think those players think in those terms. Okay, and so basically, ever since we got that message about concession, it was like, what, maybe a minute and a half? So, yeah.
Yeah, Marcel was defeated. I don't like that matchup as a Breach player and Przybylski. It just kind of went how I believe it goes very often. And now we see Kunde Graber on Is It Merktide fighting against Laben on Folklore LMLS.
And Merktide, not a popular deck this weekend, and that's not a sentence I thought I'd say. But
Yeah,
it's
one of the
true.
few, well, not undefeated, but one of the few
Top
Merktide
table.
players at the top tables.
Yep. And also today we've got just a couple of Merktides altogether. Let me just double check. We've got 4 copies, like actual just 4 copies.
Yeah, 4 out of 64.
We will update the score soon enough. No worries, chat. Yes, metagame breakdown actually was shown on stream. I think it's on Legacy's Twitter as well. Okay, so now we see an attack. Kunde Grabber is at 5, Laben is at 7, and Laben's battlefield is completely empty, but there is one fetchland uncracked. Why do you leave your fetchland uncracked in a 4-color deck?
It is because of the card Omnath, Locus of Creation, and the landfall ability.
Yes,
If you
excellent
save
insight.
fetch lands on the battlefield, then you can like gain more activation from your Omnath, which could be useful. And I think no, we're gonna see the ring, not the Omnath. So the stream is displaying the match's result as a 0-0 currently. Let us confirm it if that is the case.
Yep. Which actually could be the case because we're just like 15 minutes into the round, so it could be possible.
Well, you know how it is with those folklore decks. They
Yep.
tend to play games that last for hours.
They do tend to, yes. So now we see Expressive Iteration, which got indirectly kinda better because it doesn't get affected by Orcish Bowmasters, because Iteration doesn't technically draw, it puts into the hand, and Magic rules actually distinguish between these two phrases.
Yes, it's if the card says you draw, then you draw. It's
Thank you very much for your insight. Content creator and streamer Kanister here. And Labene at 2 life, now at 1 life, with the 1 ring on 1 counter. So lining up some mana, Plains, Forest.
So it does actually seem like a game 1 Subtlety and Seasoned Pyromancer, which is an interesting angle to take for the Magtide deck. Not the most common creatures that we see, but certainly they have their upsides. And we see a second Subtlety, and that seems like it finishes the game. Laben concedes because of the pressure on the battlefield of the creatures being able to attack him, and the big tempo swing of hard casting a subtlety seemed to be pretty crucial here. So pretty interesting build and interesting
There was a question,
take
how
on
many
Magtide.
rounds today? It's 6 of Swiss, and then we've got the top 8. So we've got just as many rounds as we are close to as many. No, exactly as many rounds as yesterday.
Yes, there's going to be 6 rounds of Swiss
And
and
then 3 in the top
rounds
8.
of the top 8. So that adds up to 9.
Any creativity in day 2? Yes, yes, absolutely.
Creativity actually the second most popular deck in day 2.
Yeah, we've got Mono Green Tron, Creativity, Omnath, Yawgmoth, Scam, Murktide, Living End. These are the most represented decks in day 2. Now, Kanister, we saw Subtlety played game 1. That's not something we see very often. Why would you decide to register Subtlety in the main deck of your Murktide deck?
I like subtlety. It's just kind of, it doesn't always fit like against every matchup all that well, but when it does, it tends to be great, and it's like both fine as a pitch spell at times if you can afford to. In some games you just have too many spells, and you get to spend 2 spells to counter your opponent's thing for free, and then also it's just like good threat, like in the folklore matchup as we've seen, hard casting it for 4 mana, getting at that free flyer. That's a relevant game piece, and alt and dealing an Omnath or Teferi, even or especially if they were cast by Delighted Halfling, it seems very valuable. It's also a strong card against Tron, I believe, against all the cards. You can delay them even when you're tapped out.
So players are shuffling up. They seem to have finished sideboarding. So if you are 4 color elementals, right, you're down a game, you're sideboarding, what would you like to see in your opening hand, or what would you like to sideboard in to then see in your opening hand to combat this matchup?
Probably cards like Well of Summer. I would like to have removal for a turn 1 Ragavan. If I'm on the play, then Ren 6 will suffice because Ren ping Ragavan is a viable line of play. If I want to draw, I would like to see a Lightning Bolt or a Prismatic Ending to get rid of Ragavan. Maybe a Solitude, but that's not perfect. Maybe a Leyline Binding, but that's also not perfect because it doesn't work until turn 2. And so, on top of that, I would be actually happy to draw like a basic land and a fetch land or 2, so that I can begin to fetch some basics relatively early to cut off the possibility of losing to Blood Moon if I get gotten by 1 too early.
But then if you are Kunda Grabber and you expect Prismatic Ending, Lightning Bolt, and especially Ren 6 on the play, is there any consideration of cutting and or trimming Channeler and Ragavan?
There is. There always is, although I believe in this matchup, Kundergraber needs to keep some threats and put on some pressure on Laben, so you probably don't want to cut all of them, and you probably can't. It's like a bit hard to do that in sideboarding. But, you know, the trick is that you also get to just play your cards differently on the draw, right? Both Dragon Rage's Channeler and Ragavan have built-in counterplay against Ren 6, which is the biggest problem, the biggest blowout, so you can just avoid playing them on turn 1. You can save your DRC for later when Delirium is already available, so that it's not going to be vulnerable to a simple ping. You can keep your Ragavans ready to be dashed, and instead try to consider or maybe keep up a Spell Pierce on turn 1. So you have options.
Yep, so basically keep it in your deck, but let's say as a turn 3 threat rather than as a turn 1 threat. Especially on the draw in the face of a possible Renin 6. Triumph, Jeskai Triumph and pass.
I do trust you that it's a Jeskai Triumph, the Rocketing Triumph, although
I've got X-rays in my glasses, so no worries. I know my blue cards when I see those. So now we see...
lands are colorless, right? I guess lands are colorless, and so is this one. Scalding Tarn for Kundergraber, and as we see, Mishra's Bubble not deploying any turn 1 threats. Reasonable.
Okay, so we just saw, or didn't see, something we call a bubble trick with the fetchland. Can you walk us through what this trick is?
The bubble trick is so that you take advantage of the fact that Mishra's Bubble looks at the top card of your deck. Well, you can look at your opponent's deck too, but you can look at your deck. Let's say you have a fetch land.
Like in this case.
Yes, yeah, like in this case. You play Mishra's Bubble, you take a look at the top card of your deck. You decide whether you like it or not. And if you want to draw it, you just pass and draw it. And if you don't want to draw it, you fetch at sorcery speed, pass, and then draw a random card instead. So you essentially construct a 0 mana opt.
Yeah, which is
very strong.
It is very strong indeed. And so Mishra's Bubble has a ton of interactions in the deck in general, right? Because you've got this bubble trick.
Delirium for Unholy Heat and
DRC Surveil.
Dragon Rage Channeler, DRC Surveil, Ledger Shredder if you're playing that.
So,
Getting
yeah.
easy connives.
In different decks like Breach, you also get Emery discount. So, replaying it with Underworld Breach, which sometimes happens in Murktide as well. So much utility for this innocuous 0 mana artifact.
Yeah, that's a great card. Like cards like this, like are just like the bedrock of Magic the Gathering formats and Magic the Gathering decks. Just like cantripping, fixing your draws at low opportunity cost, great cards.
So yeah, considering his option, Kundergraber plays a land pass. So I think both players will just be playing with lands, and that's it. How many turns or rounds of Swiss in day 2? 6. We're playing until round 15, and then we cut to the top 8. Playing in the best of 3 still.
We see Laben fetching.
Chat, we have passed on the info about Glenn, no worries.
Yeah, we see Laben fetching right now. Probably gonna play something. You've seen Chalice of the Void in the deck, interestingly.
I've heard some opinions that Chalice of the Void isn't actually that great against Murktide. Where do you stand on this?
It really depends. If the strongest card in the Murktide deck, the strongest cards against you are the counter spells, then I think Chalice is a little bit of an underwhelming solution to the deck. If the strongest cards that they have are, the removal spells, then a much stronger argument could be made for that. I think in case of Laben's deck, the much more powerful tools are the counter spells and expressive iterations. So Chalice is a little bit risky, especially if it locks some of your spells. If you're able to build your deck in a way where it doesn't lock any of your spells, then you're probably fine.
And now
it might be pretty good.
And now we see Fable of the Mirror Breaker being deployed. So it's an all-format all-star, right? So a ton of play in Standard, actually a bit too much play in Standard. Cease playing Pioneer, and even in Modern.
No play in Standard anymore, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, because it's so too much in the past. And now, why would you play that in Modern? Is it good enough?
It sure seems like it, yeah.
So what function does it perform in 4-color Elementals or 4-color Omnath?
It's just a value card. It fixes your draws, it gives you some extra mana. It's like a 2-for-1 because you produce a Goblin Shaman, and the back side of the Reflection, both are relevant cards. Also, discard 2, draw 2 is a particularly effective tool if you are a Ren and 6 deck, which all of those elemental decks are. You draw extra fetch lands and then you have way too many lands in your hand. Getting to discard them for real cards is fairly advantageous.
And now we see a Blood Moon coming down. So the biggest question here, is that GG or is it not yet?
It shouldn't be a GG just yet, right? Fable still on the battlefield, still doing things. 2 basic lands in play.
3.
Planes from hand, okay.
So it actually,
Not an issue anymore.
actually, 4-color Elemental has access to all 4 colors, right? 3 basics, and Rock Green Triumph is a mountain.
Exactly.
So
That's the reason why you don't play mountain in those decks. Like basic mountain is just not played in those decks because you don't need it against Blood Moon by the nature of the card, right?
Yep. And so Omnath could come down, but we actually see Ren and 6, which is able to keep picking up mountains from the graveyard now.
Yeah.
Now, so what are we actually shut off of? We're shut off of Hardcast Solitude. We can still play Hardcast Fury.
Yes, you can still pitch for Solitude, so it's not really fully a dead card. Omnath is still on the table. The One Ring is available to be played regardless of how many basics are there in play, so...
It's actually, it only turns off Hardcast Solitude. Everything else is on the table. We could also see some Ragavan action. Because Laben actually plays Ragavan. And I've heard different opinions that Ragavan is or isn't good in 4-color. So what's the verdict? Is it?
It's certainly useful against Blood Moon. If it gives you an extra tool to operate under Blood Moon, so he's not unhappy to have it in his deck if he kept it plus board here.
And Laben considering his options. So Leyline Binding is discounted by 4 right now, right? We've got Mountain
yes, we
and
got Mountain,
few basics.
Forest, Island, Plains.
And so we see, so that's not something we commonly see. 2 mana Leyline Binding and a Blood Moon. Would you take Ragavan or Blood Moon?
I assume so, since it's being cast right now with the Ragavan dashing. I assume the Ragavan is attacking Laben for the upside of hitting something good, making a treasure, being able to cast something powerful off the top of the deck, maybe hit something like a Teferi or whatnot, but...
Okay, so who's ahead? 4-color Elementals, right? With
yeah,
Fable
I think
going.
Laben is like way ahead right now.
Yes, and now we can beautifully see all the cards on the right. Thank you very much to the tech team. Now we've missed the flip, but we'll flipping soon enough.
Flipping it into the Reflection, which is a pretty decent card in this deck. You get to copy your Solitudes, your Furies if you play that. Very powerful effects to use repeatedly.
It's a Fairy Time Raveler. Kill that in response.
Sure.
So would you bounce Bloodman? Would you bounce nothing? Or would you bounce your Fable? Just to replay it as a Fable
Well, I would not
side?
bounce my Fable as it's not on the table anymore.
But, you know, in the previous situation. Or maybe
That's-
you put it on the stack with the intention to buy back Fable?
Yeah, bouncing the Reflection seems pretty solid. Plusing seems pretty solid to me too. Bouncing the Blood Moon doesn't seem to accomplish anything, and it's probably actually more hurtful than it is helpful at this point. You really don't care, but you make it much more easy for Kunder Grabber to play expressive iterations.
Yeah, and we see Teferi Plus there. Expressive iteration. So Laben is holding up Forest Mountain. So nothing except for Boseiju can be represented here, right?
Yeah, you just needed to tap islands, plains for the ferry, right? So
Possibly maybe pitch Solitude. So now you really know what you're playing around, right? Pitch Solitude, Boseiju.
yeah, those two things.
Although you yourself don't have much of a counterplay because there is Teferi.
Exactly.
And Laben playing now a Super Friends deck now. So probably Dashed in Monkey. And now attacking Ren, Teferi, the player, multiple options. You might attack the player just to get that blue mana possible with the treasure. Okay, and a Holy Hit on Teferi, that's good.
That's a fair than Holy Heat, I think. That's pretty effective. That was the reason why I was happy to plus my Teferi, or rather I would have been in Laben's place. That is because 2 unholy hits were already spent, so not that likely to see more, but Expressive Iteration found an extra copy.
That's a very aggressive pitch Solitude. So you couldn't hard cast it anyways. So you would
That's
pitch
why I
it.
pitch, yeah.
And I assume Laben isn't really afraid of a Murktide, although just one card in hand, so... So Laben 1 couldn't grab, like, I think 2-ish cards in hand?
It does seem like that, yes.
Another Teferi might be coming down.
Picking up a fetch with Ren and 6.
Playing it immediately. Teferi. And now would you aggressively minus to draw now? Okay, you said it's less likely to be an unholy hit. Now it's even less likely to be an unholy hit.
There should be just one unholy hit left in the deck, so you can plus it a very kind of assure that you are going to blank counterspell for the next turn.
You could maybe go like Ragavan Dash plus Bolt to get rid of it.
Let's see, that is true.
Although Ren is slowly but surely marching up to the ultimate.
The ultimate in the 4-color deck is not always the greatest. It really depends on whether you have useful spells in your configuration, which is not always a given. Sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you just don't have spells to flashback in your deck. So.
And I actually don't think we have seen any. Actually, don't think we've seen any. We've seen, Fables, Bindings, Solitude, Ren and 6 Teferi. So actually, the ultimate might be kind of bad. You might consider going, one more up and then ult, but keeping the Ren alive.
Certainly an option, yes.
Seasoned Pyromancer, so going wide, probably a bit of card filtration. Discard Subtlety, not good in the face of Teferi.
Yeah, it's not very good here. We get an elemental token for the subtlety.
So Seasoned Pyromancer is not a card we saw a lot in Murktide, then it upticked in the sideboards. Now we sometimes even see it main deck. What's its utility?
We've seen one in game 1 of this game, in game 1 of this match, from Kundergraber, excuse me. And it's certainly pretty effective at reloading and making sure that you are able to continue playing with a Teferi in play. You don't rely on Counterspell, you don't rely on Backtide Regent in the spot so much. It's not a great card to be bounced by Teferi by any means. So.
You can ditch redundant Blood Moons possibly.
Exactly.
Or main deck Blood Moons game 1 if they're not ineffective. So in this spot, is it clear who's ahead, would you say?
I still think it's Laben, but Kundergraber is fighting.
Okay, this might indicate if Hardcast Fury maybe. You're bouncing your ley line for something, unlocking Ragavan, Hardcast Fury, kill all the threats. That could be a line.
Possibly, but
Okay, we're not seeing that. Because
it seems like Ren is gonna
minus on Ragavan?
minus, although it's fairly...
It doesn't seem to be obvious. Actually, on an
Brings the
elemental.
elemental token over the Ragavan, so, being legendary, pretty large downside makes so much sense, right? To being an elemental over a Ragavan. What is it better against? It's better against dash. So if you have an extra removal and you just plan to use that removal on your Ragavan, that's why you would ping an elemental token instead.
Now we see a split Pyro at Teferi, Ragavan at player, and this ley line binding can either save the Teferi or save you from the Ragavan trigger, but actually goes for the Bloodman.
Interesting.
So Laben says, actually, nah, I'm off it.
So what happened is that Laben bounced his leyline binding and then replayed it on the Ragavan once again.
So would you have then maybe just bounced Bloodman without the extra hoops of tapping out?
Excuse me, he replayed the leyline binding on the Blood Moon, so actually he did change his target, so it makes perfect sense to actually have done that play.
So would you not have just bounced the Bloodman in the first place? And then not having to pay for the binding later?
Well, seems like not, as you are interested in dealing with the Blood Moon long term, it appears.
Okay.
It's kind of funny how how he disregards Ragavan from like out of all of those threats. Like it does make sense to exile a
Ooh. Leyline
Seasoned
binding.
Pyromancer. It has an effect in the graveyard, but that means that a Ragavan hit goes through and it reveals a Leyline Binding.
So Laben purposefully killed an elemental, not Ragavan. No answer to Ragavan, and might just get leyline bound. We might see some leyline binding trickery, right? Like binding your binding,
Binding your binding.
reveal something from underneath.
Get my Seasoned Pyromancer, maybe? Let's see.
Oh, and get the ETB trigger immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So we're counting the basic types. We've got 2 types, so it's discounted by 2.
Yeah,
You've got
so
white
four
sexy
mana.
treasure.
2 treasures in play, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana to play with. We've got a few cards in hand.
Yep, leyline binding. On Teferi, not on Pyromancer. What could that indicate?
That probably indicates that there is a greater likelihood of something like a counterspell.
Yep.
In hand.
But then if you release Seasoned Pyromancer, you can ditch those counterspells, so you would indirectly fix that issue as well, right?
Yeah, although like counterspell is just a good card at this point in the game, right? Trading for like any of Laben's top decks seems pretty effective, so I think it's pretty reasonable play if you have counterspell.
Yeah, now Ren will probably kill Ragavan now. Or it won't. Or it will. It will.
It will. Okay, this time going for the Ragavan instead of the elemental token.
So now Kundergraber doesn't have to be worried about the ultimate as much as he was, a couple of turns ago. And now we've got 11 minutes left in the round, and Kundergraber is the one who's up a game. So this might actually go to time.
Yeah, the game looks kind of close now. Like Kundergraber, like if he has like a subtlety, that's just very good. If he has like a Murktide Regent into counterspell, that's also incredible. And dashing Ragavan is a good way to keep the advantage going. Oh, we see Ren and 6, and it's gonna get combined with
Fiery
Islet.
Islet.
Very nice.
Yeah, so let me just put Fiery Islet up on the screen because it is a dual land which pings you every single turn, but it has a particular upside. You can sacrifice it, draw a card, pick it up with Ren, replay it, sacrifice, draw a card, replay it.
Yeah, instead choosing to just grab a fetch land, I assume.
Keeping up the
Let's
mana
see.
up.
Keeping the mana up, maybe cracking the Islet end of turn and then starting to go with that. So far, valuing the mana too much.
And it seems to kind of work with your prediction that there might be some counter spell action going, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yes,
sort of
yes.
holding up mana rather than crack Islet.
There is a treasure. I believe it's 1 treasure, maybe it's 2 treasures. There is a dice on the token, so that might indicate that there is 2 treasures. Alright, Laben tapping 4 mana, untapping 4 mana, pondering his play. That seems like collecting Omnath mana. You cannot cast Omnath with 3 basics and a Triumph, and the holding the Omnath above the table, asking the question, hey, will you counter my creature? Is it gonna resolve? Can I draw my card?
And it seems like this game, an actual 0 copies of Counterspell has been played. So
Yeah,
I think you're
0 copies of
expecting it.
counterspell so far, so you probably have to expect some, and especially with like the way Kundergraber just kept mana up.
Yep. And prioritize Teferi, right? So that's a read you could make as Laben. So Laben says, well, let me play my best creature here, counter. So maybe it's a situation where Laben is baiting out that counterspell that's predicted.
I mean, baiting or not,
because maybe-
you would love for your Omnath to resolve regardless.
Yeah, but maybe he wants to play a 3-drop after that. Oh, okay.
No counterspells. It
Ooh.
seems like we are using a dress down to deal with this one.
So we actually are not countering Omnath,
Mhm.
no ETB draw, and no lands triggers. However, fetches are in play, right? So the moment dress down is off the table, you can crack those fetch lands and get the triggers.
True. One interesting thing is that Kundergraber has spent 3 unholy hits earlier in the game on the fairies. So now that would leave him with at most 1 extra unholy hit in the deck. So this Omnath is gonna need like a Fury or a Lightning Bolt plus Ren and 6 ping to be dealt with. Otherwise, it's gonna be a little bit of a problem to get through, get past with that Ragavan dashes.
Maybe Kunda Grabber plays like 1 or 2 copies of Underworld Breach as a kind of engine. Some players have opted for that, but that shall remain to be seen. Dress down comes off, immediately crack a fetch. 7
End of
minutes on the
turn,
clock.
cracking the fetch. Grabbing a hollowed fountain, gaining 4 life with Omnath. Bringing himself to 14, a healthy life total.
Cracking double fetch land.
Oh, it actually
Ooh.
makes sense because Omnath's ability deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. So dealing with the Ren proactively, pretty
That-
heads-up play.
yeah,
Also saves Omnath from potential bolt.
Yeah, very good call by Laben. And now it stops the fiery eyelet loop that we may have seen the previous turn.
Very sad. I wanted to see the fiery islet getting looped.
Yep. But then it makes you think why Kunda Grabber didn't crack eyelet main phase then to recur it immediately if he actually didn't have counterspell.
Well, he just prioritized making a land drop, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Which I guess you still make a land drop if you replay the islets. True. Fair.
Okay, rereading, double checking. Kunda Grabber asks, does it die? The judge will make a call in just a second and will know what the result is.
Let's find out. Seems like Ren
And
has
indeed-
died.
So now Laben, Omnath on the battlefield, Ren up to 5, Kunda Grabber, nothing. Ragavan cannot really be dashed because he'll be blocked by Omnath, but Kunda Grabber has like a full grip of cards, it seems.
Yeah. Curious to see what play we're gonna see. Just a Misha's bubble.
And looking at Laben's top,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how to play, what to play around. There are some niche situations when you can affect the opposing player's top, like Thought Scour in some builds of Murktide, or maybe Grinding Station in Breach. You could just mill the opponent if they have something good on top.
Most likely not an option.
And maybe Pyromancer coming down, tapping red, red, and blue.
Let's see.
And Pyromancer indeed.
Alright, we're gonna discard a land and a Ragavan. No longer useful to dash through past Omnath, so we are searching for interaction, I guess.
And that's actually exactly what you talked about earlier, right? Like Seasoned Pyromancer is your filtration tool, and you just ditch whatever is dead at that particular moment, right? So, Seasoned Pyromancer coming in clutch and offering immediate filtration and going wide compared to Ledger Shredder, which you kind of have to set up to then filtrate.
Certainly, much more of an immediate impact package rather than Ledger Shredder who just wants to stay in play and accrue value. I guess like Ledger Shredder versus Seasoned Pyromancer is the ages-old Baneslayer Angel versus Muldrifter argument. Shredder being the Baneslayer in this scenario.
Also against a deck with Solitude and Leyline Binding, Pyromancer is kind of immune to this because it still creates tokens and still gives you value. While
Yes,
Ledger
yes.
Shredder is super vulnerable to those in this particular matchup.
Yes, Shredder is much weaker to removal.
So, Ren, minus on Elemental. So this game might actually come down to Kunda Grabber winning 1-0 because we've got 3.5 minutes left. That would be wild. Consider combat. Maybe looking
Yeah,
for that
attack with-
last Unholy Heat.
Omnath, and then we consider.
Kunda Grabber could take it, could chomp and then make elementals, which sounds like a very defensive play, but that might be just the avenue to this kind of weird 1-0 victory.
We might see a lightning bolt end of turn.
Right? Yeah? 2 damage is marked on Omnath. Force of negation.
All right, that's very nice. Like if the One Ring has resolved here, it would be truly disastrous. So let's see if there is a lightning bolt to finish the Omnath with 2 damage on it. Nope, it was just a charm block to gain value from the Seasoned Pyromancer while you can. So
Yep. And again, 3 minutes on the clock. So Laben is basically playing for a draw. That's the best he can master here. And Kudagrab is playing either for a win or a draw.
that is true. There is only 2 minutes 40 seconds left in the round. Those games with Folklore can take forever. They can drag on.
Yeah, and tricky now. Ragavan dashed. Some people would say that Ragavan's dash is just flavor text, but now it's proving not to be the case.
I've never heard anyone say that.
Because you've never heard Sodek say it,
Oh,
which he very much did. And so Ragavan attacking, make a treasure.
did we hit anything? Did we hit an Omnath with the Ragavan?
I'm not sure because I blinked for a moment.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't actually blink, I just looked into your eyes.
I think we see an Omnath XL, but there is no. You need 2 treasures to cast the Omnath, so just a Merktide Regent. Well, just a Merktide Regent. It's a very powerful card and a great blocker, great attacker, and it basically requires a Solitude or Leyline Binding. And we see 3 Leyline Bindings on the battlefield,
And
2 Solitudes in the
yes.
graveyard, at least.
And now we see Channeler, as you said, a late game kind of threat. Once already delirious, so he doesn't die to Ren Ping. And who knows, maybe Kuntegrabber will be able to actually take it down.
Yeah. It's also like 1-0, so like if you finish the match 1-0, you still win the match. So Akunda Grabber seems heavily favored to win this match, I guess.
Yeah, when the worst outcome is a draw, it's a pretty good worst outcome. 9-1-1, hypothetically, very much like for the top 8. Although still plenty of rounds left.
Let's count the lands on Laben's side of the battlefield. We
It's
see 1, 2, 3, 4 Shocklands, 3 basics, 2 triumphs, which probably means that there is 2 more Shocklands in the deck. The breeding pool and the
And
stomping grounds.
we're going full face here. Just no. Never mind Ren, I'm just going face. 11 damage coming through, so Omnath might not be able to keep up even. And Kuntegrabber has a few more combat steps, right? Because he will have, I think, turn 1, 3, and 5 of extra turns.
Yeah.
But he would have to pass to do it. Otherwise, this is going to be turn 0.
Also, note how long has this Brennan 6 been on the battlefield?
Yeah.
Like, how many turns?
Yep.
10? And, like, how much did it do?
Accomplished,
Like, I
really.
guess, like,
Killed an elemental.
it killed an elemental token. It
Killed
killed,
the
it killed
Ragavan.
a Ragavan. So, like, not, that's a lot for a 2-mana card, but also kind of funny that a Planeswalker was just on the battlefield for such a long time, and it just kind of sits there, and it's kind of a part of the game, but not really the focus of it.
I really like these types of games because it shows that you can't really just play your cards left to right. I think the way those players played and the decision they made actually impacted the whole game.
Ooh, that's devastating.
Boseiju on Leyline Binding.
That is devastating. If Kundegrabber was holding a counterspell, then
Yeah.
that is not something that you can protect yourself with a counterspell. And that's basically an uncounterable Teferi Time Ravel, which blanks your other counterspells, bounces your Merktide region potentially. Or maybe a Leyline Binding, and then you bind a Merktide region. That's kind of crazy. Very strong move. Ren
Yeah.
6 ready to pick the Boseiju up. Once again,
Kuntegrabber
I
at
guess.
10. So you could also attack with Omnath Ping, attack with Omnath Ping, and that's 2 turn clock.
Yeah. We might see that.
Although there is a fetch land in play, so we might see this, Omnath triple activation happening as well.
Yeah, triple activation, so it's Omnath, 4 damage from
And then,
attacking, 4 damage from the trigger, 1 damage from the ping, and then you need to deal 1 more damage at some point.
and yes, answering one of the questions, it is Kanister talking very much, and myself. Skura, also known as Islands in Front, will be covering every other round today until the end of the day. You will also be able to watch the VOD of us covering yesterday.
Oh yeah, let's not forget
during
the
the week.
Seasoned Pyromancer in the graveyard. 2 extra tokens to block the Omnath will mean that the game is not gonna be over yet. Omnath can be blocked.
So Kunde Grabber really fighting for that 1-0 victory here. I will double check if we are in turns.
Alright. So we did go for the double fetch to deal 4 damage with the trigger, which means there is no more fetch lands in the deck.
Oh,
Or rather, not any more fetchables for in the deck. So I think that line is not gonna be available anymore. With six shocklands, 3 basics, 2 triumphs, that's like the entirety of the mana base of the 4-color deck in play.
and what's the decision with Teferi? Actually, there are 2 more minutes in this match. They had some added time.
What is this Teferi doing? Float. Okay, float a white.
So,
Return Leyline Binding to hand.
yeah,
Draw a card.
Bosage it immediately.
Boseju the Moon. Okay, so it was actually float green.
You're probably discussing like maybe the timing thing, or the floated mana.
Yep, Teferi. And now we're tapping 2 mana, untapping, tapping 3 mana, untapping. Tapping 2 mana. 5 mana. Solitude. Well,
Draw.
seems like it.
Okay, we're not in turns yet. And if I were those players, I would track it very meticulously when turns hit. So we might now see an attack for how much? 3 plus 2 plus 8.
Notably, Kundergraber never searched for a land with the Bosejus. I was assuming that he's out of fetchables, but perhaps there is an island milled with one of the DRC effects earlier in the game. We see 3 steam vents, 2 islands in play. It's pretty common to play like 3-3. 3 vents, 3 islands, and not having more fetchables.
Okay, so we're considering a Solitude. And Solitude is indeed played, and Kundergraber concedes, and the judge will
Interesting.
the judge might just say, well, the time's up. And they indeed take the draw. Wow.
It does seem like the case.
Wow. So it actually ended 1-1. 4-color deck managed to squeeze out that win at the literally the very last moment. That Solitude
Well,
was
that
crucial.
squeezed out a draw.
Oh, sorry, yeah, squeeze down the draw, that's true. Which actually is pretty interesting because you play 4-color, you know it's very slow, and it's like, this is probably the pinnacle of being slow, right? You're squeezing out a draw.
Yeah,
Which
you need to like pay attention to your pace of play and be fast and be proactive and be fast about your fetching movements, etc. Not to risk drawing too much. Even if you are fast with like all of those aspects, you still might run into issues because some of the games are just gonna be very grindy. This game, like, it was not a simple game. It was a very back and forth game. It just took ages. There was a point where one player was ahead. Then there was a point where the second player was seemingly coming back into the game. It was not an easy game at any point for either of them. So
Yeah,
lots of decisions, lots of ways to play it, and you have to be careful for like the full time of the match. So sometimes a draw will happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially even if you are a fast player, you might play the mirror match, and then you have to factor that in because yeah, you could be a fast 4-color Omnath player, but then you're playing the mirror, which naturally will be very slow because neither player can actually win fast, and then the other has got all the solitudes and ways to thwart your plan. So yes, excellent round multiple decision points. Each decision point may have turned the game into something different at the end. But yeah, we take a draw right here and right now. So that concludes round 11 here. We'll take a very short break and we'll be back for round 12.
Hi everybody, welcome back. We are here, me and Harry, we are in Bologna for this next event. We are ready to casting the round number 12 of this event. But first of all, we are going to see a quick view of the prices for today's event. As you can see, top 64 today will have ticks and some USD. So every player that made day 2 is having some prizes. But then for the qualification, they need to hit the top 32, and then going up, they of course want to hit the top 8 because the prices are better and they start to also win some boxes. So that I think is huge.
Yeah, and I think another thing to add for some clarification, some people get confused that the money's provided in US dollars, but we're in Europe.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
because it's provided by Wizards of the Coast, so it's more of a classical GP-style payout. And what's great is we have some flight vouchers for our players getting into the top 8, helping them commute to the next event. You know, Legacy really wants to help out with these players because we had at the start of the series where some players couldn't actually commute to the next event. And yeah, Legacy decided to get that flight voucher in, as well as a free entry to another Grand Open qualifier. So a very nice set of prizes. We've also had a lot of talk down in the Twitch chat. What are people playing? Well, in the main feature, we have Table 1, so the two highest seeded players. And then on our backup feature match, we've also got Table 2. And this is because all of our players in the feature match, all 4 players, are at 10 wins right now. So these 10 wins, we can lock up 11. You could potentially look at some draws or even just have multiple win-ins for top 8 for all 4 of these players. So this is definitely a huge round because it could lead to just some potential draws into the top 8. We do have Boros Burn on the right-hand side. I've been told that this is Magic Online user Zenowan, very famous and renowned player for brewing very interesting decks in the modern format. But what's most interesting about this Boros Burn deck, as a Dryad of the Elysian Grove is coming down, it does not play any copies of Eidolon. Literally none. Now, this is because they're hedging against the Ring and actually playing Roiling Vortex. And that's because Roiling Vortex has some nice text where you can stop your opponents from gaining life with Omnath, and you can also deal some damage on the upkeep. This card is just coming down on the table now. Interesting decision. So this would have technically been an Eidolon. We've just completely swapped out 4 Eidolon for 4 Roiling Vortex. But yes, this is definitely not the matchup you want to see as the Burn player.
We have a second Dryad on the battlefield. And we can start with the token made by hand because we need to be sure about what is called. And now we have the giant.
And Roiling Vortex here could actually be huge, and that's because of the text that it says, if an opponent casts a spell and no mana was spent to cast it, they take 5 damage. Well, Amulet Titan, we do have Summoner's Pact, we do some play Pact of Negation. I doubt you want to cast Pact of Negation against Burn, but there are ways to get a lot of value from this Roiling Vortex, and here we go. That's 5 damage. Summoner's Pact is cost 0 mana. That's going to be a free 5 damage here from the Roiling Vortex.
Getting down to 10. And 3 mana. A lot of floating right now is starting.
So,
And let's see.
with no Amulet in play, this is just a value Titan. So we have to deal 10 damage. Well, actually, we have to deal 9, because the Roiling Vortex will deal 1 on the upkeep. Unless we can do some, maybe get the Slayer's Stronghold, bounce it to hand, and then, because we have so many land drops, maybe we can do something, but... And I don't think we have many ways to gain life in the main. For the oh, we have 1 Radiant Fountain in the main, actually. I stand corrected. We do have a Radiant Fountain available for Titan. Could just go for Valakut as well.
But Boros Burn still have the Roiling Vortex that can, with 1 red mana, can say, nope, you don't get any life.
So that's going to be Valakut dealing 6 damage. We're copying a bounce land. Yeah, this should be lethal because we're gonna bounce the Vesuva to hand, then copy the Valakut. Or oh no, you just play it as a bounce land. It's the last card in hand. Yeah, we win because it's 6 per land. Oh no, it's not 6 per land. It's 3 per land. Sorry, my mistake. There's only one Valakut on the board.
Yep. Let's see, counting up.
And that is going to be. That's going to be enough.
It's enough, yep. It's enough. So we are going to game 2. Do you think that Boris can try to sideboard something that can be useful against Titan?
We've actually had this player in the feature match before. Yeah, we have copies of Path to Exile. We have copies of Wear Tear to destroy Urza Saga. We have ways to remove artifacts as well from Smash to Smithereens, so there are a lot of ways we can attempt to slow down the Titan player, but it's definitely really difficult from the Burns perspective because we have to also present a kill. So I would expect maximum disruption is coming in, but I can also see some logic behind not overboarding. Things like, for example, Searing Blaze in the matchup. Searing Blaze helps you kill a Titan if you want to double bolt it.
Yep.
Like Searing Blaze plus bolt, okay, fine. But it's not great against things like Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That's a 2/4. So it's down to how you want to balance out your deck. Roiling Vortex, that's a slow enchantment. Do you want to hedge against Summoner's Pact? I'm not too sure. It's down to, the Boros Burns players' experience, because they will definitely know this sideboarding matchup way better than me. And Amulet Titan, we haven't got too much. Haywire Might is an interesting one, actually, because you can sacrifice it to gain life. I wouldn't hate seeing that come in, because you know about the Rolling Vortex. You want some incidental life gain. That's reasonable. The One Ring is also great. Not too much, though, from Amulet Titan.
Let's see.
I think Amulet Titan is so well positioned because it's so easy to get a Titan down with the little disruption Burn will have that you just want to keep your deck as true as possible to the combo.
Yeah, makes sense. 43 minutes left on the clock plus extra time, because every time we call them for feature table, they need time for setting up, so judges will keep some count up of extra time. So it's usually more. But I don't think they will need it. Let's see. There is a vial in hand for Titan players. One ring. We cannot see the Boris player hand, but let's see if he decides to keep or maul. Well, sometimes also bad matchups can happen when you are in a big tournament like this. So, but 10-1 is an amazing result till now for both of them. How many rounds? We will have 15 rounds in total plus the top 8, so 3 more and 3 top 8.
Yeah, that's a Goblin Guide. Hitting for 2, putting a forest into hand from the trigger. This is going to be an Amulet of Vigor turn 1.
Yep.
To no one's surprise. Perfect start for Titan. I guess the perfect start would be an Urza Saga into Amulet of Vigor, but is good enough.
Attacking again.
Getting more value. That's a Valakut going to hand for the Titan player.
And
I don't think I see a bounce land in hand, though, for Titan. Potentially, there could be an alternate art one, but if Titan's on a slower draw, Burn has a chance, especially being on the play.
fetch. (14 to 16), second land founded. And let's see. There is double bolt in hand for Boros.
That's a wear tear. That's going to be wear, destroying the Amulet of Vigor, putting that to the graveyard, and really slowing down the Amulet player. There might be another Amulet in hand, because I did see an artifact there, but that's an Urza Saga off the top. That is an Amulet in 3 turns. And that's that
And
Haywire Might we were talking about. Just a creature that you can block with. When it dies, you gain 2 life. Just slowing down the burn player, giving you more turns, more land drops, more mana, get that Titan down. It does do a lot of work.
Attacking with both also the Shadow Spear, I think she has 1 trigger, so with prowess now she is at 2-3. Blocking with the might. And Saga is getting another chapter.
Did we miss the Haywire Might trigger? Because no one reached for their life pad. I'm not too sure. It might have been verbally announced, but
Huh, probably.
that's going to be an untap for the burn player. Now we need to...
Oh, Guided Neutrality.
Oh, I see. They shortcutted. Okay, okay. They just shortcutted the combat step. That makes sense. Thank you, Twitch chat.
Meanwhile, Dryad on the board, and let's see what he's deciding to do. We know that Boros have 2 bolt in hand.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
all your spells deal 3 damage, and they just play
Exactly.
an X4, and then what did I do?
Exactly.
Okay, we could have a Searing Blaze here. Oh, that's a Roiling Vortex, yeah.
Attacking with both.
Oof.
And first triggering of prowess for the monastery, fetching 1 land. Yeah, right now all the cards that has been drawn from Ricardo make a huge advantage. We have just to see if it's enough or not. First bolt on the Dryad. So now second triggering of the prowess for the monastery.
I think it was Bolt Face, actually.
Yeah, both spaces. Sorry, I said Dryad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think it makes some sense, because you just got to hope that we don't have just Titan in hand. If we don't have Titan in hand, we've only got 3 lands in play, so Valakut is difficult to trigger. And we can't cast Summoner's Pact, because then we die to the Roiling Vortex. And if we get to untap his burn with 1 card in hand, we could potentially just win. We'll have to see. Oh, we just have Titan?
Yep.
So I think Titan is just lethal, because if we get... Well, we just give it haste. We get Crumbling Vestige and Slayer Stronghold, or whatever assortment of cards lands you'd like to do. We're going to have some Valakut triggers as well in there. And the Dryad here is allowing the colorless land to be tapped for mana. So that's why this is a fortunate board. But yeah, that's going to be game over. We're going to be using Vesuva to copy the Valakut now. Oh, well, that's triple Valakut. Triple Valakut in play, you get 6 trigger.
And yeah, this game was fast, but don't worry, we can switch directly on table 2, because we have table 2 exactly on the pairings, and we will see Rakdos against 4-color Elemental.
Yeah, but that's going to be Amulet Titan advancing, 11 wins, 1 loss. Very well positioned to make the top 8. Potentially locked. We don't know how the draws will work because of the standings. Those players have to work it out themselves, but definitely getting that 11th win here is a huge deal for these players.
And we have one player that is still undefeated. Franco Bianchi is 10 win and 1 draw. He's doing pretty well in this event with his Rakdos scam, and right now we are up. The first game was won by him, so let's see what about game 2. We are now after sideboard. We didn't see what they choose to side in and side out. This one is a closed decklist tournament, but they will be all available for you after the end of event. So just check this evening and you will find everything, but we can start to talk in details during the top 8.
Yes. And our 4-color elementals player is actually a player we've seen a lot in the coverage booth. I've commentated for this player multiple times now across the past 6 months, so it's no surprise that they're at 10 and 1. But it's going to be an interesting match to navigate, especially being down a game against Rakdos Scam. But the One Ring does work.
It seems like Franco decided to mulligan to 6. Shouldn't la bene be 9-1-1? I will check it immediately. Yeah, seems like this. We will fix that. Thank you, chat.
Actually, both of our players are 9-1 and 1. Or oh no, sorry. One of our okay, we're getting it sorted out now. As the players are just resolving their mulligans, we're going to make sure we have the correct information put on the screen. That's going to be a turn 1 Ragavan.
Let's see. And 1 land. Grief.
Evoking a Grief. It's going to resolve. It's an Elishnorn, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and a Fury, I think? Or is it another Ragavan? No, it's another Ragavan. That's going to be a Feign Death. Make sure that Grief comes back with a +1/+1 counter, taking the Fable, leaving the 4-color Elementals player with just a second copy of Ragavan. Now we are really praying off the top of the deck. We have to find something to claw back into this game. Another Feign Death on the top of the deck. If we top decked imagine if we drew a Fury here. Use the treasure, scam the Fury, get a 4/4. But nope, just a land and passing back the turn.
And let's see. Half an hour left on the clock, so we are still in the early phase of the game. And pass. Then pass. Another land?
Okay, we need something here.
Yeah, for sure.
I think with nothing this turn, we're hoping for we can have many combinations of instant speed removal to get rid of that grief. But with just a Ragavan and some unknowns and 2 unknowns, it's definitely rougher. 4-color elementals here, especially being down a game and not even being able to attack with the Ragavan because that grief does have a +1/+1 counter on it. I would assume we don't even have a removal spell because you would just remove the grief and attack in.
Thinking about every single move. It's 2 mana.
Something great about playing in the coverage area is we just have a Ragavan and we're going to pass back. No, we're going to attack with that
the
grief.
There is a lot of pressure also when you have to play in feature tables because you know that everybody's watching. Attacking with the grief.
We're going to be fetching some mana here. Wonder what this could be. I would be somewhat surprised if there was a removal spell for the grief here.
Both players are at 17 life points.
Oh, that is a dress down. Okay. So that's going to make the grief lose menace and remain a card.
Still 2 mana opens.
But it's still a 4/3, even with menace. Yep, just takes it. Keeping that windswept heath around on the board, because don't forget, Blood Moon is still an option for the scam player. Have to be very cautious about that card.
Yep.
So until you need a Triumph, you don't need to fetch a Triumph.
Trade the Ragavan for a Ragavan, but then we have another one from René. And Shockland.
Oh, that's a Turak. So this has been cast with Kicker, so if it enters the battlefield, Romain's going to have to discard 2 cards at random, and he 2 Ragavans! 2 more! We've drawn all 4 Ragavans!
Okay.
Oh my. And that's going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on the Turak. And we're going to hit in for 4 with the grief. Wow, I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
He drew all 4 Ragavans, like the top 12 cards.
And pass.
It's an Orcish Bowmaster that's going to enter the battlefield and deal 1 damage to the Ragavan. Does. Going to get that Orc army.
Attacking with both. So René is going down to 9.
That's going to be it, the
And
extension of the hand. Rakdos Scam advancing to 11 wins and 1 draw. Actually putting themselves in a very good position to make top 8, because now they are the first seed in the room, being still undefeated with Rakdos Scam.
Yep. Now we are on a refill table, and we can see Jagmot Golgari against Boris Born.
Yep, we do have the players the wrong way round, so we'll make sure to fix the overlay on that. I don't think Boros Burn casts Yawgmoth in Modern.
Yeah. And they're updating everything. Meanwhile, what we can see is a Yagmoth, a Young Wolf, and the Light Halfling. I'm trying to understand which one is, if they are in game 1 or game 2. Game 2. Yeah, game 2 or game 3. They're in game 2, and Boros, Yagmoth player were the first winner of the first game.
Yeah, and we're just getting the live totals updated now because the live total tracker is on the floor and just moving from our main to the backup. That's going to be a Goblin Guide, though, blocking the Young Wolf. Just letting it trade. Thing with Yawgmoth is you have to pay life to be able to draw cards and put counters on, but that's a Hollowed Moonlight to make sure that that Young Wolf does not come back to the battlefield and also draw a card for the burn player. Gonna get exiled. We're gonna sacrifice the Delighted Halfling to put a -1/-1 counter on the Goblin Guide. That will kill the guide, because don't forget the Young Wolf did deal 1 damage to it to go to the graveyard. Now Burn gets to untap. That Roiling Vortex is going to deal 1 damage to the Burn player. Don't forget it is each player's upkeep.
And pass. "23 minutes left on the clock." First win was for, they're updating everything. And let's see, attacking with the Yagmoth.
Yeah, and one thing with Roiling Vortex is, in some scenarios, when you play against creature decks like Yawgmoth, they can just use it against you. Oh, but that's a Scavenging Ooze. Very classic card in Modern, being able to exile a creature from the graveyard for 1 green mana to gain a life, and put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is relevant not only for the clock,
Yeah, but also for Yagmoth.
and to put this Roiling Vortex against the burn player.
Yeah. "11 life point for Boris Burn player, 14 for Golgari Yagmoth." Taking damages from the land.
Boros Charm You. In response, we're going to exile both creatures from the graveyard, gaining 2 life and putting 2 +1/+1 counters on this Scavenging Ooze. But we are still going to take 4. So we did not have any red mana to prevent the life from Roiling Vortex. That's another Boros Charm off the top of the deck, but we know that there's no third land still. This is where Burn gets a bit awkward. You keep drawing all these 4 mana spells. You just... sorry, 2 mana spells. You want the 1 mana ones. And all this incidental damage is adding up for the Burn player here, right? We've got the Roiling Vortex every upkeep. We've got the Pain Land from Modern Horizons.
And also, and now there is nothing that can try to stop the ooze that is getting bigger and bigger. They are checking about something, so probably, yeah.
Oh, did we miss maybe a roiling vortex trigger? We're gonna get an update from the floor, see what the judge call is about.
Yep. They're explaining everything, so we have the judge just there. Be sure about everything. Oh, missed a yak suck. They will update us as soon as they can. Let's see.
Okay, we did not get an update on the judge call, but if we do find out what happened, we will let you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But the game is going to proceed with the young wolf being put on the stack.
And let's see what else. Attacking with O's. That right now has a +2/+2 on it. And let's see. Meanwhile, I can remember you that they still have 18 minutes left on the clock. We are on round 12. Today we will do 15 rounds plus top 8. And they are both at 9-2. Still in the game for top 8. Another trigger. So let's see.
More damage from
Double land. Yeah, down to 3 right now.
Sunbaked Canyon has definitely done a lot of damage this game, especially with the rolling vortex.
And 3 life points are so low for him in this situation. Let's see if we can find a way to deal with it. Another Boris charm.
Hmm. We need two. Well, we can't have 2 lightning bolts because the Sunbaked Canyon will now kill the burn player, because we are still going to take 1 on the upkeep. But this is going to be a Court of Calling.
2 life points for burn player.
And that will get a... If this is for X's too, this will get a Blood Artist and win the game. Because Blood Art, we can then... Yep, or the Cutthroat. Cutthroat, whenever a creature dies, you can drain your opponent for 1. So we're just going to sacrifice 2 creatures, and the opponent loses 2 life. That's going to be an extension of the hand.
And yeah.
Yawgmoth going to 10-2, putting themselves in a great position to fight for that top 8 slot.
Yeah, for sure. So, and now I think we are switching on another table, maybe. No, we are going on just talking about some part of this event, because we need to wait for a moment. They are setting up the table for our refill, and then we will be back, because we still have 15 minutes on the clock, so the round is not ending soon. So
Yeah, it was a good round. I
Yeah.
think definitely, while it seemed on day one that the One Ring was a big deal at the tournament, I've seen so many games won without the One Ring.
Yep.
I was speaking to some professionals in the room. I said to them, Twitch chat's been telling me One Ring needs to be banned. What do you think? They said, Harry, the format is new.
Yeah.
How can you ban something in the first week that it's been released? You need some time to let people balance out. Remember when Ragavan was printed into Modern?
Yeah.
Everyone was playing it, and now only the good decks, good Ragavan decks are around, and not everyone's splashing for it.
So we have a 5-color creativity against. Well,
So-
we can guess.
So for those wondering about why the deck list is named NA, this is because our player on the right has submitted a paper deck list. So because it's not registered online, we don't know what deck they're exactly playing, because they have not registered on MTG Melee. And to get the deck list from this player, we would have to ask for their permission. Because we're trying to keep the coverage going smoothly, we can't get them to sign the agreement. We just wanted to get them onto the coverage booth. Once we know exactly what their game plan is, we'll make sure to get a name up there for you.
Hmm. Also, we only have 3 players today with paper deck list.
Yes.
Only 3.
We had 64 people qualify for day 2. 3 of them are your classic players, but that means we're having a creativity mirror. Or, oh, I understand. We have the players the wrong way round. So the NA is the player playing 4-color control, and our other players playing creativity. Apologies, because we've just set up this table in the coverage booth, so we need to get some information. We have the information put the wrong way around. Our
Hmm. I'm fixing it.
Okay, that's an Elish Norn. From creativity, that is a creative sideboard plan, identifying that 4-color control can't really do anything with that on the battlefield. The bindings are turned off, solitudes are turned off, Omnath's turned off. So many things are turned off, and if you get an Archon into play, well, that's going to trigger twice. Even the One Ring does not give you protection if Elish Norn is on the battlefield.
And let's see.
Yes, Prismatic Ending for 5 is an out, but again, cutting off almost over 60% of your removal spells, probably higher. It makes it so that you're only looking to get to Fairy Time Raveler to bounce it, or Prismatic Ending for 5 mana. You're right, Twitch chat. But you might be wondering, why didn't that Fable make 2 goblins? Because Elish Norn's meant to double the trigger. Well, Fable of the Marebreaker isn't actually an enter the battlefield trigger because it's a saga. The saga's ability
Yeah.
triggers when it goes on to the first chapter, and the
They-
first chapter is non-enter battlefield trigger.
Exactly. They first enter on the battlefield and then the first chapter. And we have another Elish on the opposite side. And draw. Land Elish.
That's an Elish Norn. I guess the way you can also beat Elish Norn is by stopping their Elish Norn.
It could be one way. Yeah. Meanwhile, this one is game 3. They still have 11 minutes on the clock plus the time for extra time. 11 life point against 12. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana.
That's a prismatic ending for X is 5.
Yeah, access 5.
We managed to get there.
Yeah.
And now we
Attacking.
can attack in, start getting things to trigger again.
And create a treasure.
That's going to be an extension
Yeah.
from the hand, being too low, just being attacked down. There's going to be creativity beating 4-color control here, advancing one of our players to 9 and 3. Now 9 and 3 is still viable.
Yep.
You're still in it to get to the top 8, but you got to keep winning matches. We've seen many X3-1s make the top 8 before, but you are looking in that 7th and 8th position slot. So our players are still in it. Got to win it out. Do we have any more feature matches? I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
So that's going to be round 12 here, down in the feature match for Legacy European Tour Bologna. But Piotr and Philip are going to be back for the next round shortly. But now we're just going to have a quick break.
Exactly.